Hi, you're listening to Pop-Up Podcasting. We make podcasting easy, so stick around for tips, tricks, and a behind-the-scenes look at the podcast industry. Hi, I'm Lisa, and in this episode, JP, Will, Richard, and I discuss sound design for narrative style podcasting, sound tools you can use, and tips when gathering ambient sound. So the sound design, maybe some special effects. We could talk about the more artistic aspects of it, and also just the more sort of practical, like where might people go to find good music or special effects sources when they get to the stage.
I think we've touched on it maybe in a bit of a past episode as well too, but I always see a lot of that stuff as like what really like elevates it, right? I mean, if we've already talked in previous episodes about, needing that good hook, connecting with your listeners' emotions, everything. Like if you're checking all of those boxes, people are still listening to whatever program you've produced because you've done a good enough job with your preparation and all of that. I think your sound design and everything is what then can, really draw you into it and like elevate you above sort of your competition, I would say. Because like you can really set the scene. Like if say it's one of those, very popular murder mystery ones, right? Like if you're describing the night of when this alleged crime took place, if you have the good doorknob sound as the intruder enters or the creaky floor or whatever it is, right? Like you can really set the scene and like you're almost like, you're bordering on that movie level of immersion, I would say, is where it can take it. That's how I view it anyways, is sort of like what sort of elevates you, takes you over the top and really like immerses your audience.
Well, yeah. So if you want to like really, you're going to need the tools to do it. And part of those tools is going to be access to a very good music library, and not just necessarily. So there's music libraries like radio based music libraries where it's like instrumentals and stuff like that. But for these things, maybe you want real music. So like actual lyrics and singing and stuff like that. So there's music for film websites. And like, I ended up using Soundstripe for one of mine. It's just, a bunch of artists that put their music up there for basically for rental, for lease, for films and for this kind of project. And then you would need access to a really good sound effects library. I think, JP, you keep bringing up Marvel, and I think the big,
I'm not
big
like
sound
the world's
effects
biggest
library.
Marvel fan.
Yes,
Hey,
you
no,
are.
I'm a
Yes,
huge
you are.
Marvel fan. Okay, like I'm a huge comic book guy. I'm a big Marvel guy. I'm a DC guy. I'm all that. But one of those, like, I think Marvel ends up using Boom Library for some of their stuff. And it's just like they have so many different packs of sound effects that
Lots of those wows.
just, yeah. And they have like everything. They have like quiet nature stuff. They have like huge tech stuff. They have everything. So, that's something that you would have to think of if you're about to like dive into this. Like those are going to be some of the tools necessary.
Yeah. I've been lucky to work on a couple of productions where we had custom music, and it's not cheap because everybody needs to be compensated for their time, and in an artist's case, buying out the copyright or licensing it. And but it's really cool when you're like,
it's awesome.
I'm going to send you this like sort of scene with just dialogue, and then something composed that just like hits the beats exactly where you need them is really cool. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. The other thing I'll add to that kind of production side of things is if you're interviewing in the field for these narrative style podcasts, and a lot of them are a big mix of like remote interviews and studio interviews and field interviews, in-person interviews. But one of my big tips or big learnings when I've worked on sort of documentary style podcasts is gathering sound in the field, and even like writing yourself a little checklist or because it's always harder to fake it, right? When you're like, if you're like walking across, a gravelly driveway with this guy, whatever, the murder weapon is in his garage, and he's like, let me show you the old murder weapon. And, as you're walking across that driveway, like point your mic at his feet and like pick that up, and, pick up the creaky garage door opening and things like that, because yeah, those things that put you in the real environment, and even, give yourself the time. In some cases, it'll make sense to do that after the main interview is just like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to the driveway and like walk across it and record my feet or whatever, right? If you're not able to get it while the person is talking, but kind of getting those things in place, because people will also notice if you fake it wrong.
Yeah, if you do a poor job of doing the sound effects, the sound design, it'll be obvious. And that's another thing, JP, of what you're talking about, is if you want to record all that stuff, like you kind of need a fairly good recorder. Like it's, if you have like a very basic field recorder, it's going to pick up a lot of the wind and a lot of the stuff that you don't really want it to pick up. So it's going to be hard to mix that stuff in, which is where some of the free libraries online, like there's a website called Free Sound, and it's just people that basically do that. They just recorded their own sounds. Some of them sound like they were recorded on a phone from 1999,
right?
But some of them sound like they were professionally recorded, and someone was just bored and uploaded that. So that's another thing. You have to try to record it yourself. Hopefully you get a really good audio quality the first time, or try to do it yourself, or try to like JP said, recreate the walking on the pavement. And if not, after that, you're going to have to source it somewhere.
Yeah. And get it as cleanly as you can, because, it's going to be noticeable if you're like, listen to these crows, but there's like a lawnmower going in the background or whatever. And on that topic, I was going to say, just in terms of faking it badly, I remember I was working on a show for the Nature Conservancy of Canada that was more sound designed and kind of documentary style. And we were putting in bird sounds. And they were like, make sure you put in the right bird sounds. Because it's
People
like,
know.
if you put in oh, this is taking place in Oshawa, but you have a bird that only exists in, Pickering. I don't know why I chose two places so close together. But the bird nerds will know. So be careful about that.
I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for Will to mention a specific show.
Will, do you know of a show like that like uses some kind of bird noises?
I mean, maybe the Crow Patrol, just maybe. Yeah, they might have a couple squawks in there.
Okay. But yeah, that was like what we were taught in school, was get that ambient, and then to be so aware of it, because there'd be times like if you're doing, let's say, an interview and you set it up in a restaurant and it doesn't occur to you like, oh, you're going to get those like forks clanking and like the chatter in the background that you want, but you're also going to get like Madonna playing in the background at low volume. And then you're going to be cutting your clips and it's not going to line up. And so, and like, that was something that sometimes I'd learn a bit the hard way, but that was kind of drilled into us in school.
Yeah. Well, and like in any recording scenario, like we've talked about before, like control your environment. Like in that case, I would be like, can we turn off the TV in the bar? Or can we, clanking forks is fine, but I don't want to deal with
copywritten stuff.
Yeah. Copywritten stuff or stuff that's not going to cut well.
Thanks for checking out Pop-Up Podcasting made easy. If you're interested in learning more about podcasting or starting your own podcast, you can find us at popuppodcasting.ca, where you can download our free guide, Podcasting at Work.